Have you noticed something unusual happening in global agriculture? While many farmers in the United States continue adapting to higher production costs, shifting trade policies, and growing uncertainty in international markets, a very different story may be unfolding across West Africa. This time, the spotlight is not on a new mine, a military agreement, or another political headline. It is on a trade route, a route that could become one of the most important agricultural developments Burkina Faso has seen in years. Some analysts believe that if Burkina Faso gains more efficient access through Morocco's Atlantic trade connections, export costs for certain agricultural products could fall significantly. In one analytical scenario, the savings could reach as much as 20%, not because of one single change, but because several costs, fuel, border delays, port handling, insurance, and logistics could all become more efficient together. If that happens, the impact would extend far beyond transportation. It could reshape farm profits. It could encourage local food processing. It could strengthen rural communities. And it could gradually change how African products compete in global markets. But this story is not only about economics. It is also about two regions moving in very different directions. While one part of the world faces the challenge of adjusting to a rapidly changing trade environment, another is searching for new opportunities to build greater self-reliance through regional cooperation and agricultural investment. Today, we will examine what is confirmed, what remains a projection, and why this single trade corridor has attracted so much attention among economists, farmers, and policymakers. If you enjoy calm, fact-based analysis about Burkina Faso, Africa, and the economic forces shaping tomorrow's world, take a moment to subscribe and join our community. Because before we can understand whether this corridor could truly change Africa's agricultural future, we first need to answer a much bigger question. Why have African farmers been losing so much of their profits long before their harvests ever reached the global market? Before discussing any new trade corridor, we need to understand the challenge that many farmers face long before their products ever reach an international buyer. For many agricultural producers, the harvest itself is only the beginning of the journey. After months of preparing the soil, planting seeds, managing water, and protecting crops from unpredictable weather, another set of costs begins to grow. Fuel is needed to move products from rural communities to collection centers. Time is lost at border crossings when paperwork takes longer than expected. Storage fees increase whenever shipments are delayed. Insurance costs rise when transport routes are uncertain. Port handling charges add another layer of expense before goods can even leave the continent. Each individual cost may appear manageable. Together, they can significantly reduce the income that finally reaches the producer. Imagine a farmer who spends an entire season growing sesame or mangoes. The harvest is good. Demand exists. But every additional day on the road, every unexpected transport fee, and every administrative delay gradually reduces the value of months of work. By the time the shipment reaches its destination, the difference between a profitable season and a disappointing one may come down to logistics rather than farming. This is one reason why economists often pay close attention to transport infrastructure. When supply chains become more efficient, the benefits may extend well beyond the trucking industry. Lower transport costs can improve farm profitability. More reliable delivery schedules can encourage investment in food processing. Regional businesses may become more willing to sign long-term supply agreements when delivery times are predictable. That is why discussions about new trade routes often attract attention far beyond the transport sector. They raise a larger question. Could better connections allow more value to remain within African agricultural economies instead of being absorbed by avoidable costs? To explore that possibility, we first need to understand what the proposed Morocco trade corridor actually is, and why some analysts believe it could become an important development for regional commerce. Now that we understand where many of these costs come from, the next question is straightforward. What exactly is the Morocco route? And why has it attracted growing attention among economists, logistics experts, and agricultural businesses? At its core, the idea is simple. A more efficient transport connection can shorten delivery times, reduce uncertainty, and improve access to international markets. For an exporter, every day saved matters. For a farmer, every dollar saved on transportation has the potential to become additional income that can be reinvested into the next growing season. This is why discussions about the Morocco corridor have expanded beyond transportation alone. They are increasingly viewed through the broader lens of economic development. To understand the potential impact, it helps to separate confirmed facts from analytical projections. The existence of trade links through Morocco is a real and documented element of regional commerce. However, estimates suggesting export costs could fall by 5, 10, or even 20% are analytical scenarios. They are not guaranteed outcomes. Their purpose is to illustrate how different levels of efficiency could affect agricultural exports if multiple improvements occur together. Let us begin with the most conservative model. If total logistics costs decline by around 5%, many farmers may not notice a dramatic change overnight. Yet, even a modest reduction could help offset rising fertilizer prices, transportation expenses, or equipment maintenance. For a family farm operating on narrow profit margins, small savings can make an important difference over an entire season. The second scenario assumes a reduction of roughly 10%. At this level, the discussion begins to change. Exporters may become more willing to sign longer contracts. Banks could view agricultural businesses as lower-risk borrowers. Private investors might see greater opportunities in food storage, packaging facilities, and regional processing centers. The conversation shifts from simply moving crops to creating more value before those crops leave the country. The third scenario is the one that has generated the greatest attention. If a combination of faster border procedures, lower fuel consumption, improved logistics, more efficient ports, and reduced delays collectively lowered export costs by as much as 20%, the effects could extend well beyond transportation. Products with relatively high logistics costs, such as fresh mangoes or livestock, could become more competitive in distant markets. Sesame, cotton, and processed agricultural products could also benefit if producers retain a larger share of export revenue. Again, this is not a prediction. It is an analytical model designed to explore how infrastructure improvements might influence competitiveness under favorable conditions. Another important question follows. Which products would benefit the most? Not every crop responds in the same way. Some commodities already travel efficiently. Others lose significant value because of time-sensitive transportation or higher handling costs. Fresh fruit, processed foods, livestock products, and specialty agricultural goods often depend heavily on reliable logistics. For these sectors, even modest improvements in delivery time may have measurable economic value. This is why infrastructure planning is rarely just about roads or ports. It is about creating confidence. When buyers know deliveries are reliable, contracts become easier to negotiate. When processors trust supply chains, factories become more attractive investments. When investors see stability, financing becomes easier to secure. One improvement can influence many others. That is why economists sometimes describe infrastructure as a multiplier rather than a single investment. If transport becomes more predictable, processing becomes more attractive. If processing expands, employment can grow. If employment grows, rural incomes may become more resilient. One improvement creates another. But this raises an even more important question. If logistics become less of a barrier, what should Burkina Faso do next to ensure that it exports not only more agricultural products, but also more value? If transportation becomes more reliable, the next question is no longer how quickly products leave the country. It becomes how much value they carry before they do. For many developing agricultural economies, exporting raw commodities has long been the starting point of international trade. Cotton, sesame, livestock, and fresh produce can all generate income. Yet the greatest share of economic value is often created later in the supply chain during processing, packaging, branding, and distribution. That is why infrastructure and logistics are only one part of a broader development strategy. If transport costs become more predictable and regional trade becomes easier, local businesses may find stronger incentives to invest in storage facilities, food processing plants, and packaging centers. These investments can create employment beyond the farm itself. Engineers, mechanics, drivers, technicians, quality inspectors, and small business owners may all benefit from a more integrated agricultural economy. Supporters of economic diversification have argued that strengthening these parts of the value chain can help countries retain a larger share of the revenue generated by their own agricultural production. Whether and how quickly that happens depends on many factors, including access to finance, energy infrastructure, workforce skills, and market demand. For farmers, the practical impact is often measured in stability. If buyers have greater confidence that products can be transported efficiently and delivered on time, they may be more willing to enter into longer-term purchasing agreements. That can reduce uncertainty from one harvest to the next and make future planning easier. Regional cooperation also plays an important role. As African markets become more connected through initiatives that encourage intra-African trade, businesses may find new opportunities closer to home while also expanding their access to overseas customers. The combination of improved logistics, regional trade, and investment in processing has the potential to strengthen resilience across the agricultural sector. The pace of that transformation, however, will depend on continued investment, effective policy implementation, and conditions in global markets. These are long-term developments rather than immediate changes. As economists often note, infrastructure alone does not transform an economy. It creates opportunities. How governments, businesses, and communities respond to those opportunities ultimately shapes the outcome. This leads to another important question. If agricultural value chains continue to evolve across Africa, how might these changes influence the broader balance of trade between African economies and their international partners? As discussions about new trade corridors continue, it is useful to step back and look at the broader international picture. Agriculture has always been more than food production. It is connected to trade, transportation, energy, finance, and national development. A change in one part of the supply chain can influence many others. In the United States, farmers and agricultural exporters have faced a changing international environment over the past several years. Global supply chains have adjusted to disruptions, input costs have fluctuated, and international trade policies have evolved in response to economic and geopolitical developments. These challenges have encouraged many producers to focus on improving efficiency, adopting new technology, and diversifying export markets. Across Africa, a different conversation is taking place. Many governments and businesses are exploring ways to strengthen regional trade, expand agricultural processing, and reduce logistical barriers between neighboring countries. Initiatives that improve transportation, simplify customs procedures, or encourage investment in storage and processing facilities are often viewed as part of a longer-term strategy for economic development. For Burkina Faso, the discussion extends beyond moving agricultural products more efficiently. It is also about creating conditions in which greater value can remain within the domestic economy. If farmers gain more reliable access to markets, local businesses may find stronger incentives to invest in processing, packaging, and distribution. Over time, those investments can support employment, encourage skills development, and strengthen rural communities. Regional cooperation may also become increasingly important. As trade links expand across West Africa, producers may have opportunities to reach both neighboring countries and more distant international markets. A stronger regional network can improve resilience by giving exporters more options when global market conditions change. International observers are watching these developments with interest. Some see opportunities for increased investment and commercial partnerships. Others emphasize that long-term success will depend on infrastructure, stable institutions, access to finance, and continued improvements in productivity. These are factors that influence agricultural development in every region of the world. No single transport corridor can transform an economy on its own. However, when combined with investment in people, infrastructure, education, and local enterprise, improved connectivity can become one element of broader economic progress. For Burkina Faso, the coming years may provide an opportunity to build on its agricultural potential while strengthening cooperation with regional and international partners. The pace and scale of that progress will ultimately depend on decisions made by governments, businesses, farmers, and consumers alike. Looking ahead, one question remains especially important. If transportation networks continue to improve and regional cooperation deepens, which step should come next to create the greatest long-term value for Burkina Faso's agricultural economy? Expanding production, investing in food processing, or developing stronger export brands recognized around the world? As we reach the end of this discussion, one important point becomes clear. This story was never really about a single road. It was never only about ports, trucks, or shipping costs. It was about possibility. Throughout this video, we asked whether a more efficient trade route through Morocco could reduce agricultural export costs for Burkina Faso. The honest answer is that no one can say with certainty today. The figures we explored, 5%, 10%, or even 20%, are analytical scenarios designed to help us understand what might happen if several improvements come together at the same time. But even if the exact numbers turn out to be different, the larger lesson remains. Every nation that has transformed its agricultural economy has done so by reducing barriers, improving infrastructure, investing in its people, and creating more value from what its farmers produce. For Burkina Faso, that journey is still unfolding. The country's greatest resource is not only its land, it is the determination of its farmers. It is the resilience of its entrepreneurs. It is the ambition of a younger generation that wants to process more, innovate more, and compete in regional and global markets. Many supporters believe that under Ibrahim Traore's leadership, Burkina Faso has placed greater emphasis on economic sovereignty, agricultural development, and regional cooperation. Whether every goal is achieved will depend on continued investment, effective institutions, security, and the dedication of millions of ordinary citizens. In my view, the most encouraging sign is not one proposed corridor or one economic projection. It is the growing belief that African countries can increasingly shape their own development priorities, strengthen regional partnerships, and create more value from their own resources. If that momentum continues, Burkina Faso could gradually become not only a producer of agricultural goods, but also a stronger center for processing, trade, and innovation within West Africa. Perhaps that is the real answer to the question we asked at the beginning. Could one trade corridor reshape the future of Burkina Faso's agriculture? Not by itself, but it could become one important step in a much larger transformation, one built through practical investment, regional cooperation, and the determination of people who believe their future can be stronger than their past. History is rarely changed by a single decision. It is changed by thousands of steady decisions made over many years. A farmer choosing to plant again, a young entrepreneur opening a food processing business, a truck driver delivering goods across a safer and more efficient route, an investor deciding that Africa is a place worth building with, not merely buying from. Together, those decisions can create lasting change. Whatever the future holds, many people across Africa hope to see a continent that is more prosperous, more self-reliant, and more connected to the opportunities of the global economy. May God bless Africa. May God bless Burkina Faso. May God grant wisdom and strength to Ibrahim Traore, to the people of Burkina Faso, and to everyone working in good faith for peace, dignity, justice, and shared prosperity. Now, I would like to hear from you. Do you believe improved trade corridors and stronger regional cooperation can become a turning point for Burkina Faso's agricultural future? Or do you think other priorities should come first? Share your thoughts respectfully in the comments. Your perspective may help others see this story from a different angle. And if this discussion gave you a new understanding of the opportunities and challenges facing Burkina Faso, thank you for being part of this conversation. Until next time, may hope continue to grow wherever people choose cooperation over division, hard work over despair, and a vision for a better future over fear.